Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar. Really glad that you're able to join us today. Really excited about today's topic. We've got Erik here to tell us all about the work that they're doing over at Inventive, how they have built AI agents, particularly on top of Looker, to help people analyze data effectively. So I'm going to hand over to him in just a second. But just before we do, just want to say welcome to everyone. If this is the first time you're joining one of these webinars, they're run by myself and the team at Spectacles. They are for the Looker community. They are really just about interesting topics in data, and particularly focused on Looker to bring the community together and try to give us a space to learn from each other, to kind of upskill and just generally keep up with what's happening, which is definitely the case here with Inventive and all the work that they're doing. We run these webinars every other week, pretty much at this time. So we'll have our next one in 2 weeks, Wednesday in 2 weeks' time. That'll be going live on our website and on LinkedIn to register shortly after this webinar. We're going to be talking about actually something that we're currently building on the Spectacles team. We're taking part in the Looker Hackathon this week, as many of you watching this probably are or will have done. And we've built something cool that we want to share with the Looker community. And we're going to be talking about how it uses Vertex AI and LLMs and all that type of stuff. So if you're interested in that, that'll be going live shortly, later today or tomorrow to register. And that'll be happening in 2 weeks' time. And so on that note, I'm really excited to hand over to Erik. Their team is doing really cool stuff over at Inventive. I'm going to let him do the full explanation of who they are and what they do, because I'm sure I won't do it justice. But we've been speaking to them over the last couple of months about what they've been building and really wanted to share it with all of you, the Looker community. So Erik, over to you, and it's your show from here.
Thanks so much, Don. Can you see my screen?
We can now.
Perfect. Hey, everyone. It's great to be here, and thank you, Dylan, for having us. Dylan and I actually met a while ago when I was back working at Looker, and Dylan was one of our beloved partners and customers. And so we had actually, connected at a hackathon. So it's really cool to hear that you're still doing all those, Dylan. So today I'll give you a bit of a background about what we're building. But before I do, just some context about who I am. Like I said, I had worked at Looker for several years. I had been leading some of the embedded analytics efforts to help more customers productize and monetize their analytics. Typically, we saw the same problems over and over again, and that's what the insights that I used to kind of start this company. And we got some domain experts who had been embedding analytics and had faced the problem from both the product and in the engineering perspectives. And so now we've been building for over a year now with LLMs and building AI agents, and I'm excited to share what we've learned. And if anyone's keen to try it out themselves, we're excited to help however we can. And we'll be doing Q&A at the end, so feel free to ask your questions, and I'll do my best to answer it. I'm the non-technical founder of the bunch, but as a early stage company, we're pretty hands-on on a lot of this work. So hopefully I can help answer any and all of your questions. So without further ado, I'll get into it. We just came out of stealth mode this week, and we announced that we have this AI Analyst agent that are helping our customers productize and monetize data to their customers. So check out our website. Today, just give you a quick overview into what we're doing. So quick overview of what we're going to talk about today. I'll walk through the main problem that we see all the time from our customers and how AI agents can provide a really compelling solution. We'll jump right into some live demos that are particularly interesting, maybe for the Looker community. And then we'll talk about how we built it, any lessons that we learned that you could maybe benefit from if you're trying to build your own, or if you're interested in partnering. We're excited about exploring that too. And what it takes to get started. So like I said, come up with your questions and we'll make sure we answer them towards the end. So the problem, I don't know if anyone's watched Eurovision, but I think there are some Europeans on the call, and it's Yeah, great movie, Will Ferrell. But the problem that we're solving is that customer requests, especially from customers, it's a losing battle. It will never be enough. They're always wanting more data in more ways, and the customers we work with are literally pulling their hairs out for being able to try and address this customer request problem. So that's where AI agents get really interesting. So because of LLMs, as we all know, in this AI era, for the first time ever, we now have a technology that's able to bridge the gap between non-technical domain experts and the technical people who really understand the data and are analysts. So we're also able to create an interaction that is iterative and interactive. So unlike in the old world where you have a dashboard and what you see is what you get, maybe you have some self-service tools, but they're maybe hard to use. With an AI analyst in natural language, you can iterate towards what you want, in as easy natural language as you would communicate with anyone. So what are AI agents? They're flexible software systems that can reason, decide, and take action towards goals. And unlike traditional software apps, they actually do the job for you. So the example in our situation is, let's say you have a customer who is using your product, and they ask for a custom filter that's not available in your product. They submit, that as an email to their account manager. The account manager then files a ticket with the data team. The data team puts it on their backlog and gets to it whenever they can against all the other priorities they're facing. And then eventually they are able to take the request, fulfill it, and that could take weeks, even in months in some cases, and get back to the customer. And in that time, the world's changed and the customer wants something else, and so it's this never-ending problem that we're talking about. So what if you could take an AI agent, put it in your product, and be able to serve that up to your customers as the experience that they have? And so it would be, again, this fully autonomous, flexible software system that can actually do the work of getting that report and iterating with the customer to get exactly what they need. So it's still early days in the LLM world, but we're seeing some really encouraging signs of promise here. So without further ado, let me get into a demo. So we've actually connected to Spectacles. So for anyone who doesn't know, Spectacles, the host of this webinar, is helping customers, Looker customers, and the Looker community really optimize their Looker instances and deployments, CI/CD for developers. So what we have here, and I'll jump into demo in a second, is I'll just jump over here. We have this user interface that you can see where you can save and take all your answers from previous questions and have them available. That's what you see here. But you can just go ahead and start asking questions. And a typical question we've seen a lot from users is orientation, trying to understand what data they have access to. And typically our answers take 10 to 15 seconds. And so here's just one example. We can ask an analytical question, and it takes about 10 to 15 seconds. This instance here doesn't have all the latest and greatest of what we're doing. We're streaming results now, making it a much faster feeling experience. But what you can kind of see is that we're able to take a natural language input and deliver a result. In this case, a table that you can maybe schedule to come into your inbox on any given day or week, and be able to send that to Slack as well. Or you can save it, and like I said, on the homepage, have that appear easily accessible where you are. So where this fits in our offering is we embed in our customers' products, and this can take the form of a contextual co-pilot on the right side panel, or a full page immersive experience, or if you don't have a software platform or you want to internally test, you can white label in this experience that we have here. So that's how our AI fits into solving the customer request problem as an embedded AI analyst co-pilot. So let me get into some other conversations I've had. So last night I was running a few of these questions that are maybe typical for the Looker community who want to maybe optimize their content. So I asked which explorers are the slowest on my Looker instance, and it came back with the Explore name and the average runtime, and summarizes the results. Okay, so now I know which explorers are slowest, which are the users that are impacted most by these slow queries. And again, it puts a date filter on it, and then it comes up with the users who are in the slowest 95th percentile runtime. Each of these things, can save and schedule if it's interesting. Then, iterating again for adding a filter to make sure it's only the slowest explorers, not any explorer. We now have this date filter, this explore filter, and a status filter as well. And now we see the users who have the explorer with the slowest runtime. And then finally, are there any dashboards that are running particularly slow for these users? And so now we have this user filter and are able to see what users' content is actually causing the slowdown. So taken together in this journey, this iterative journey with the AI analyst, you can really drill and take the results of your previous question and continue iterating to the insight that you need to be able to take better action. And again, if there's anything that you like and you want to receive on a recurring basis, you can do that. Another example from last night is show me the trend of explore speed over the last 90 days. Here, we get the average runtime over the last 90 days. And then it continues making it better and provides a viz to show you the trend line over the last 90 days. For all the charts, we provide the original data so that you can see and inspect the actual field names and be able to see what governed data that is being served up. And if you want to iterate from this viz, you can do that as well. So let's break that out by explore and visualize on the same chart. And so it goes to work. It comes up with a first draft explore. It sees that there's just too much noise, so it starts iterating on itself, and comes up with a streamlined top 10 explorers and their average runtime. If I had more time, I could probably just remove that outlier so you could maybe see a little bit more. But just another example of maybe a Looker specific use case that our AI analyst can help given the data that we used from Spectacles. So to give you a sense of the Explorer that we're using behind the scenes, these are the views that Spectacles made available. Of course, they anonymized any data so that it is completely safe and secure. So just to give you a sense, it's a very straightforward Explorer. Most of our customers have something a little bit more complex, but we can get into some of the details of why, some of the considerations of how you want to optimize your LookML and how you want to optimize your AI to be able to work on top of that. So that's the quick demo. Let me get back into the presentation now. So how do we do this? So architecturally, we've built an agent and tools system. So the agent, think of it as like the smart customer interface or user interface, takes on the persona of an AI analyst. We feed it additional instructions, for example, how to respond to certain types of questions. And we also give it a set of tools. So the ability to query, the ability to visualize, the ability to transform. We have Python code execution. So there's a whole bunch of advanced analytics that our customers are enabling for their customers. As you saw, there's the self-evaluation loop and the ability for the agent to self-repair. So if it sees an issue with one of the visualizations or results that it generated, it can automatically start self-repairing that and getting to a good outcome. We've put this agent and tools architecture on top of the semantic layer. So this allows us to sidestep the hallucination problem, because in Looker, if you have a governed semantic model, for example, you can make sure that you don't have make sure that you're only pulling trusted metrics that are governed. And because we're using the semantic layer and querying via the semantic layer and serving up the actual fields that are in the data, we make it so that the user can trust the answers in a way that they can't really trust ChatGPT, which is known for hallucinating and etc. So it's also really important on top of that to have a transparent and auditable UI UX. And so as you saw a brief look at, but in our UI, we make it clear what fields are being used. We also have debugging tools for our customers to be able to look into how certain answers were formulated, and look at the queries that were run or the transformations that were done, and be able to serve up like a very clear understanding of what the AI did, which is really important for generating trust for our customers and their customers. There's a whole bunch more we could get into, but I'll keep moving. In terms of the LLM techniques, we've done a lot of, it's taken us over a year to working with these LLMs to get to where we are today. So it's non-trivial to go from an LLM that's kind of cool and does some fun things to actually something that's production ready. And today we're live with thousands of users in production, and it wasn't easy getting here, but yeah, I'll share some of the learnings that we had along the way. But the techniques that we're using that many of you may have heard about, of course, prompting. This is a core fundamental technique that does gets us a lot of the way there. But there's also a fair bit of retrieval or RAG that we do to make sure that our AI understands which fields to pick and visualize in the best way. Evaluation, how do you know whether an answer is good or not? If you are working in Looker, it's fairly straightforward to be able to compare what's in Looker to what the AI returns. And because we're pulling only from the semantic layer, we know it's going to be the same metrics that you see in Looker. But evaluating whether the right fields were picked is sometimes subjective, and we'll talk about that in a second. Debugging, I mentioned, giving users tools to be able to see what the AI did and understand if anything looks off, give them full transparency and auditability there. Monitoring, so being able to understand how users are using it, what they're asking, see the entire thread history of a user trying to do a certain task and seeing how that goes. Really important for understanding the value that you're creating and any gaps that you might have in your data model and might want to add to your data model, or that sort of thing. And then, of course, metadata. So giving the LLM context about who the user is, who you are, what data they have access to, any non-obvious relationships in the data. These are all important context for the AI to be able to function at its best. In this simple example that I shared with in the live demo, we didn't have to do any specific metadata context feeding for the Spectacles Explorer, because our AI was able to work this well off the shelf. But in more complex situations, this becomes more important. So on that note, I'll just get into some of the lessons we learned. So as you're building this frontier of AI, it's important to be at the leading edge and not the bleeding edge, or that's where we've landed. We don't want to be inventing these new techniques. We don't want to be a research team. We want to be solving customer problems, and so we typically allow some time to pass between a new technique and the communities to battle harden it a little bit before we start implementing it for ourselves. And that we spent a bit of time a little bit too close to the bleeding edge, and so we learned that it's better to be a little bit further away from that. As we all know, it's easy to look at a demo on Twitter and think, wow, this is amazing. But the reality of building with these things is that it's actually much harder than most product teams think, or most data teams think. And so it's make sure you have your systems in place to be able to evaluate efficiently, and really want to be able to be quantitative about how you're making improvements. One challenge has been unit testing, for example. How do you know when you make a change to your LLM pipeline, whether you're making it worse in some ways but better in others, and are you just playing whack-a-mole? So this is something that is still challenging in the industry, but it's really important to come up with the systems that you need to be able to evaluate and continue improving without making things worse. Further questions. Onboarding, so new customers is fairly heavy, just in that we, when we work with new organizations, it's really important to understand their domain and be able to transfer that domain knowledge into the AI's context so that it's able to respond as well as a human might in various situations. I've already talked about evaluation a little bit, but it's a pretty involved process, especially when there's multiple right answers maybe for any given prompt. And there's also some very challenging questions that maybe go outside the scope of the capabilities of the AI. And being able to understand how best to respond in those situations and whether the response was good is also somewhat subjective. So having a system to effectively evaluate all that. Speed is really important for users. People don't have a lot of patience. And so whether it's real speed using the fastest models or purpose-built models, or whether it's the perception of speed with streaming, like I mentioned, we haven't shown here the streaming capabilities of the way that we give the answers in real time as opposed to in batch. That makes a huge difference for end users and their ability to have patience for the AI and getting it getting a good interactive experience out of it. And then finally, just like we saw on the problem slide, there's a ton of requests that people have, and the long tail is extremely very, very long. One example is with one of our customers. The question was taxes. It wasn't even a question mark. And so fortunately, our AI was able to figure out that this user probably wants a report of their taxes over the last period of time. And it picked a bunch of interesting fields that were relevant and gave a good answer. But if there's one thing we've learned is that no matter how much testing we do in-house, we'll never fully be able to represent the long tail. So it's really important to get out in front of users and in the wild. So in terms of getting started, the way we typically work, if this is interesting or you want to explore working with us, we want to connect to your data and test the baseline of performance right off the shelf. Like I said, with Spectacles, it was, everything worked pretty well right off the shelf. So we could skip number 2. But for most companies with more complex data models that they want to expose to their users, there's a fair bit of tuning that we have to do, where we want to feed some of the domain context and optimize the AI understanding of the data in the model to be able to provide great answers. And then, like I said, we can only estimate what is in the long tail. It's much more important to get in front of real users who have their real way of phrasing questions and the real questions that are top of mind. And so getting out to alpha customers and as quickly as possible, iterating and rolling out to the next batch in beta and then ultimately GA. So it's a journey, but it's important to consider all these different things that I shared if you're trying to build your own. And yeah, we'd love to partner if this sounds interesting. So with that, I'll transition to Q&A, and if anyone has any questions, would love to answer them.
Awesome. Thanks, Erik. Yeah, if anyone has any questions, drop them in the chat and we'll pick them up. I've got one that I want to ask first, which is you talked about that example just then about someone just like typing in the word taxes and the AI kind of trying to need to figure out what that means. How have you guys thought about, clearly the approach today is like, well, the AI is going to make the best guess approach to what that question means. How have you guys thought about it asking follow-up questions, like clarifying questions versus going straight to like, here's what I think might be useful and using that as the jumping off point for things from there? Kind of how have you thought about balancing that and what workflow have you seen works best for most people?
Yeah, it depends on, it's a great question, Dylan. It really depends on the preferences of the company that we're working with. And so we're able to coach the AI in the direction of being, asking clarifying questions or trying to get it on the first shot. What emerges through testing and in the wild user feedback is, the balance that we want to strike. We don't want to be continuously asking for clarification, but we also don't want to be making too many assumptions about what the user might be implying when they're giving a vague question. So it's a bit of a balance, but it's fully configurable, and it's something that you can just instruct the AI to do.
And this is more a question, I guess, about the customer, but when customers are coming to you with these problems, with the problems you outlined that they want to solve, which is customers with an endless list of requests and things like that, what level of configuration technically are they coming to you with? Are they coming and saying, hey, we really want to use this Anthropic model? Or are they like more hands-off and happy to delegate to you guys? And I guess, how does that work with you? But are you finding, really a question about the customer, are you finding that people are coming to you quite opinionated about what they expect and what they want to use? Or is there kind of a willingness to be hands-off with that as you speak to people?
Yeah, it's another great question. I think there's a spectrum. Some people want to just, have it work and not have to worry about it. Other people at larger enterprises typically want to have their own models, like their own private models that they've been fine-tuning internally for certain use cases, and be able to use those. There's a lot of open source foundation models now that do a fairly good job, and we've definitely gotten the request to swap out our models for theirs. And by ours, I mean we leverage the LLM, major LLM provider foundation models. We don't train our own or anything like that. But because of how we've architected, we've been able to benefit from be able to accommodate for this interoperability and also benefit from improvements that happen at the foundation model level. So just an example, we upgraded from GPT-4 to GPT-4o in just a couple of days because of the fact that we abstract away the model from the actual pipeline so that we're able to configure however is going to create the best results for the customer. And in some situations, that's using the customer's own model.
That makes sense. I guess a call to the audience if you guys do have any other questions, but a final one for me is if people do want to go ahead or test this out, what's the best place for them to find you guys?
Yeah, we have our website. I can throw it out into the chat, but it's or you can reach out to me on LinkedIn and DM me, or my email is erik@madeinventive.com. But if you have any ideas or things you want to explore, it takes us typically From your experience, Dylan, it's very quick to connect, especially if you have Looker already modeled. It just takes the API keys and the client ID and client secret to be able to connect your model. And then, once you have that started, we can immediately start testing for the baseline performance, like I mentioned, and iterate from there.
Awesome.
Thanks for the questions.
Yeah, and just I guess for the audience, we've been testing out Inventive for the last maybe a month now, and particularly if you're already using Looker in an embedded context, which we weren't, but if you are, I can see a very fast route from like the explorers that you're already using for embedded use cases to being able to just expose that to your customers in a much broader way, which is really cool. So Erik, excited to see what you guys do next, and just looking forward to it.
Really appreciate
awesome.
the time. Yeah.
Yeah, well, we'll call it there for today. If you guys do want to get in touch with Erik, you know where to find him. And if you're enjoying these webinars, as I said at the beginning of the webinar, we'll be doing the next one in 2 weeks. We'll be talking about some more kind of Gen AI stuff on top of Looker that we've seen out of the hackathon that's happening this week. So please keep an eye out for that, and you can register on LinkedIn or on our website. But a big thank you to all of you. Erik, thanks to you, and we'll see you all